I've been a paramedic for almost 15 years, and I've had one call that has convinced me that ghosts are real. So buckle up. I worked for a 911 agency. Got a call, a signal 30, and a signal 30 on the radio stood for an unattended expiring. It took them a while to be found. So in this instance, we got called for a signal 30. Mama lives by herself, and the mailman, after about a week of mail stacking up in the mailbox, the mailman finally called the sheriff's office for a welfare check. The sheriff's office got there, found that Mama had expired, and so they called us, and we have to confirm that she had expired. Of course, it was hot. She had been in there for a little over a week. She had a pet. So I'll let you put two and two together, or three and three together, however you want to do that. She came out of the house, flies everywhere. I put some vapor rub in my nose and put a mask on, so I was taking that off. And I look across the street, and there's like a row of mailboxes across the street. So like everybody on that street gets their mail from the same spot. The little old lady was over by the mailboxes, and so I went over there to go check on her. I said, is everything okay? Do you need anything? And she said, well, is Miss So-and-so okay? Mama that expired, she's, I think the ME came back and said that she had been gone for about 7 to 9 days so far. So just keep that in mind. She's been expired for about 7 to 9 days. And I have this conversation with the lady across the street. She says, everything okay with Miss So-and-so? I said, no, unfortunately, she's gone. She said, normally we come out here and check the mail, but we do every day at 5 o'clock and kind of, talk for a few minutes, and then we go our separate ways. She said the past like 4 or 5 nights, all she's been doing, she noticed that Mama was at the front window of the house gesturing to come inside. And that was last night, and the night before that, and the night before that. And Mama has been gone over a week. You put two together, that made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. And I don't think that lady realizes how lucky she is.
People that I know are definitely going to see this, and it's going to be so embarrassing because I am going to cry, and it's on the internet, and that's so cringe, and I know. But what I'm about to say is a completely true story. I'm going to change out some identifiable information because HIPAA, it involves a nursing story. So aside from like what happened, all the like details just, they're made up. Okay. So I was on orientation. I'm a new grad in the ICU. I am now off orientation, but this happened while I was on orientation. Anyway, so we have this guy, I'm going to call him Jason. He's a 40 to 60-year-old man. So like kind of young, has kids, married, whatever. Very, very sick. I had him for truly like the whole time that I was pretty much on orientation. And he, really sick, intubated, CRRT. I learned so much from him, which I will forever be grateful for. Truly learned so much. So thank you for that. Nearing the end of his stay, he all of a sudden turned this huge left corner, and I was like, oh my gosh, did I heal him? Woohoo! Got him extubated, got him off CRT. I got to hear his voice, got him sitting up on the edge of the bed. Like it was, I think, one of the best days of my whole life. So that was earlier in the week, and had a couple days off. I was feeling so good. And I come back to work, and it was a night shift. And, I'm like, I don't know, excited to see what new patient I was going to get, what else I was going to learn. And they say, hey, Bailey, and my preceptor, y'all got to get out on the floor. You have Jason back. And I was like, what? Because again, I'm on orientation. So like, I should be getting like, I was like, he's fixed. Like, what do we, like fixed for the ICU, but I was like, what do we mean? Like, why am I getting him back? And they're like, oh, we're actually coding him. What? So we run down there, and sure enough, we're coding him. He's back on CRT, back to being intubated, and I am just devastated. Oh my God, was I devastated. So we walk in, and we just start working. It wasn't even, I guess it was like right at 7 p.m. We didn't get report, because again, I'd had this patient for weeks, And so I knew, I was like, but what happened? And it turns out it happened. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Anyway, some other things happen. And we go in at 7 p.m. I don't walk out of that room until 3 a.m. Like 3 a.m. It was crazy. It was crazy. Blood, sweat, and tears. And 3 a.m. is whenever we came out. We're just like, there is nothing more. There is nothing more that we can do. And I was broken. Okay, so come out. 7:32 a.m. and Jason passes, and it was devastating. And and the ICU can just be like tough, and losing anybody is tough. This one has stick with me and will stick with me forever. And I promise I'm getting to the ghost story. I promise. Okay, so he passes, and I just want to stay to do postmortem care, because for me that's such like it gives me closure. I can get them all cleaned up and make sure that they're like as comfortable as possible. Like, it's just the last little bit that like I can do, and it helps me. Okay, but I can't because it was so sudden, and so we were giving family time to like come and blah blah blah. Okay, and I was coming back that night, so I couldn't just like stay. Like, I have to come back. I have to go to bed. I have to like be ready to go for the next day, which is so challenging. Okay, so that happens, and I am so not okay. I am so not okay. But I have to be okay because it's the ICU and I'm new and blah, 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 blah. Okay. So months goes by from that moment. And I mean, from that time on, I mean, it was weekly. It was turning into like an every other day situation, whether I was working or not. I was having panic attacks. I was having nightmares. I was physically so unwell. One particular night, I'm coming in for my shift. I'm off orientation. I'm on my own. I've been practicing on my own for a couple months at this point, and I just feel terrible. I'm still having panic attacks. Before this particular shift, I'm having a panic attack in the car in the parking lot of the hospital. And I was just sitting there, and I was like, I'm not strong enough. I can't do this. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I was kidding myself. Major imposter syndrome, but panic attack nonetheless. Shaking, crying, hysterical. And I thought, okay, just don't clock in and go quit. Like, if you really can't handle it, go quit. Walk up to the floor. I'm like, no, I've breathed, I've composed myself, clock in. So I'm there, I'm getting my patients. Like, we're having a shift. And I go on and I get my patient assignment. Great assignment. We're chilling. This one patient that I got, I don't think we need a name for him. Anywho, he was there for alcohol withdrawal. Beginning stages, but beginning to hallucinate if you haven't worked with, or if you're unfamiliar with that. So they start to hallucinate. He was seeing people in the room. He was seeing things crawling on the wall, but like nothing scary, because sometimes they can be really scary, and I feel really bad for that. But his were fine. And he was also very trusting of me. Like, he was like, hey, I've been through this before. I know I hallucinate. It helps me if you can help reorient me. Anytime you walk in the room, just, I trust you. I know who you are. I was like, sweet. So we're going through the night. Everything's groovy. I'm able to get him off of hallucinations. He'll be like, this is there. And I'm like, and he's like, do you see that? And I'm like, no, like, I don't see that. Or, hey, I have a concern about this. And I would go check. And I'm like, no, like, I'm not seeing that. But do you feel safe? Are you okay? He's like, yep, I'm good. I trust you. Again, we're chilling. Several hours into the shift, all of a sudden I'm looking at the monitor, super tacky. He turns on his light, like from his bed or whatever. And I'm like, whoa, that's so strange. So I fly in the room. I'm like, maybe, hallucinations getting to him. I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's agitated. Oh my God. He was so upset with me. And he was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, whoa. I was like, hey, like, what's up? I was like, because, sometimes that happens and no big deal. We roll with it. And so I'm trying to help reorient him. And all of a sudden he goes, Jason's in the corner. Sir? Jason? I'm like, okay. Well, because I didn't think that up at first, but I go, who's Jason? And he goes, that guy that died in here. And goes on. He's like, this is where his spouse was. This is what you did. This is what you guys talked about. This is music that you played for him. This is what he liked to do. And he's in the corner and he wants to talk to you. And I'm so mad that you're not talking to him. So I hightail it out of that room. I'm like, oh my God, he's right. And he knew his name. And I'm like, what room am I in? I was in his room. In his room. So I run out of the room. I'm freaking out. And I'm like, no one's going to believe me. Everybody's going to think I'm crazy, that I've like lost my mind. So I run up to tell my charge. I'm sobbing. She starts kind of getting emotional. And she's been a nurse for 25 years. So she was like, whoa, I've never heard anything like this. Anyway, I go back in the room. And I was like, okay, what does Jason want to tell me? Because I can't see him. And he calmly tells me, again, I just had a panic attack. And the man in the bed that's hallucinating says, Jason's in the room. He's been in here. And he's wanted to talk to you all night. And he wanted to say that he has moved on. And that you need to, too. And I hadn't moved on. I hadn't. Obviously. And I just started crying, and I just said, okay, and thank you. And he said, no, thank you. And I was like, oh, what did I do? And he said, no, that's what Jason wanted me to tell you. He wanted me to tell you thank you. And oh my God. Since then, I haven't had any panic attacks. I felt so much more confident in the ICU and in my skill. And I carry him with me everywhere. I think about him all the time, and his family, and just how beautiful of a person he was. But I truly learned so much from him. He was an amazing person that I just learned so much about how to be a nurse and how to care for people in really shitty situations. So, cheers to Jason. But yeah, that's my ghost story. My past patient haunting another patient to tell me that I needed to get my stuff together and move on. So anyway, that's my story. Thanks for listening.
Okay, I have a ghost story to tell you. I'm in a new hospital and I was walking around and it's empty and it's kind of creepy, and I heard some noises and I started thinking about all the different like ghost stories that I have from years of working in ICU. But the creepiest story that I have, sorry about that noise, it's loud but I can't turn it off. The creepiest story that I have. So I worked in a hospital that the unit that I worked on had never been anything but a cardiovascular ICU, or cardiothoracic. It was hearts and lungs, and heart transplants, total artificial heart, lung transplants, anything cardiac related. So on this floor, there was a patient that we had one time. There was a particular room that kind of gave you the heebie-jeebies when you walk past it. And we had a patient in that room that he was not a nice human. He was somebody that I had actually known like outside of the hospital, so I never took care of him because it was a conflict of interest. But one night he was confused, so he was just saying kind of mean, hateful things. But one of the things that he kept saying is he kept using a racial slur, the N-word, and he kept saying, "Get that little racial slur out of here. He's playing in here. Get him out of here. I don't want that little racial slur in my room." And everybody, this man, I didn't like him outside of the hospital and as a patient, and was confused, and it was not good. But anyway, he ended up leaving that room, got better, left. And then when you're in the hospital, you can get confused, and it's very normal for you to hallucinate. You have medications on board, that's just kind of a normal thing. It just kind of, sometimes your true colors show up whenever you are on medications. I've had women punch me that, their family members say oh, they're so sweet and kind, but then they get on, medications, and then they are, hitting and kicking. And anyway, anesthesia can do that to you, as well as medications, and, even your sodium gets off, there's all sorts of things that can influence you. So we didn't think much of it. I think it was 2 days later, not just a couple days later, we had the sweetest little old lady in that room, and I did take care of her. She was adorable. I swear I can't remember, she was in her late 80s, but she was so sweet and so cute, poor lady. But she was not confused. And she kept telling me, she was like, can you get my purse for me? Give me my purse. I really need my purse. It's over there. And I was like, what do you need your purse for? And a lot of times we don't give patients their belongings because there might be extra pills in there and we got to know what they're taking. So I said, well, let me help you go through your purse. And what is it that you want out of there? She says, I have some candy in there. I really want to get some candy for that little boy. He keeps coming in here and playing, and I have some candy that I'd like to give him. And I said, "What, there's no little boy?" And she says, "Yes, there's a little black boy. He keeps playing over there in the drawers, and he's looking for some food, but I have some candy, and I'd like to give it to him." This unit had never been a pediatric unit. There was never children. There wasn't any children on the unit, and nobody was visiting, especially no children. It's pretty creepy.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So I work in healthcare, and I've always worked in healthcare. And when I was 18, I worked in a nursing home. And it was my first job right out of high school, and I loved it. It was fun, and I enjoy healthcare. Anyway, I was working night shift, and I think anybody that works in healthcare and that works night shift, if you know, you know. This was my first time working a night shift. I usually worked the PM shift, or from like 3 to 11. I can't remember what it is anymore, but like 3 to 11. But the people that were supposed to come in on nights didn't come, so then I had to stay. So like 3 o'clock in the morning, I was trying to finish up some of the duties. I was helping one of the residents with something, and I was taking some garbage from their room into the utility room. And as I'm walking into the utility room, I see out of the corner of my eye what I thought was the nurse walking into another resident's room across the hallway. And so I walk in the utility room, I drop my stuff off. It takes me like 30 seconds to do. It's not that hard. So when I come out, I look up and I can see the call lights off. So the call light, if you don't know healthcare, they're outside the rooms and they let you know that somebody needs something. So I thought the call light was on when I went in the utility room. That's why I thought the nurse was going in there, and it was off when I came out. So then when I go down the hallway, I can see the nurse standing at the end of the hallway by the nurse's cart. So I go down and I ask her, what did this resident need? And the nurse kind of looks at me puzzled and says, I don't know. You're the one that answered the light. And I said, nope, I didn't. Kind of figured you answered it when you walked in there. And she goes, what are you talking about? I haven't even been down there this whole night. I'm still passing her meds or doing whatever she was doing up there. She was like, I haven't been down there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I literally watched you walk in there. She goes, I have not been down there. I've been at this cart since the shift started. And she could see like the weird, like puzzled look on my face, I guess. So then she was like, she got this shit grin on her face. And she goes, you saw her, didn't you? And I go, care to fill me in? Who was that? She goes, we have a ghost. We have a ghost in the nursing home. We think it was a nurse. And she used to answer call lights, or she is answering call lights. That's why we think she was a nurse. And people see her all the time on the night shift. And I always tell people that this story always freaks me out. I know I do paranormal stuff all the time, and I'm usually a skeptical person when it comes to that, because I think a lot of stuff can be explained. But I always tell people, I think the reason that story sticks out so much is, number one, it happened to me, so I know what I saw. And number two is that I know what I saw. I knew I saw a person walk in that room. There was no doubt in my mind. I didn't think I saw something. It wasn't a shadow. It wasn't a blurry thing. Like, I know I watched somebody walk into that room. It has always stuck with me and has always freaked me out. That's my ghost story.
Welcome back to Spooky TikTok. I am Nurse Meg. I've been a nurse for 16 years, and the paranormal just seems to follow me everywhere. So here is one of my creepy stories. This one time I had a patient in PCU. I was working night shift, and she had a cardiac cath scheduled for the next morning. Pretty simple. She would not sign the consent forms all day the day before. I tried to ask her again a couple times, hey, you haven't signed the consent forms, and they're going to come and get you pretty early, like 7:30. She was like, I can't go. If I go, I'm going to die. Do you want to watch the procedure on YouTube with me? Like, it's a pretty simple thing. She still insisted, no, if I go get that procedure, I'm going to die. And I said, okay, I'm sorry you feel that way. The doctor will be here in the morning and he can talk to you. It's up to you. And I should point out, she was completely alert and oriented, times 3. So the doctor comes in and is like, hey, how doctors are. They're like, I've got 70 million patients. Like, let's go. You want this done? Let's go. Like, what's happening? What's going on? So, kind of pressuring her, like, it's a simple procedure. I'm just going to go in, peek, pull it. We're going through radial. We're not going through femoral. Like, it's going to be so simple. You're going to be out of here tomorrow. Maybe end of the day. She finally signs the consents, and she's so worried. She's signing it, and as she's signing it, she's like, I am signing my death certificate. I can't believe I'm doing it. Cath lab comes, takes her away on the stretcher, and I'm taking care of another patient. I come out to chart by her room. All of a sudden, overhead, I hear code blue, cath lab, room, whatever, and I get instant, I'm getting it now, instant chills, like, was that her? Oh my God. Oh my God. And then maybe like 5 seconds later, where I'm sitting in there just like frozen, I'm like, I can't chart. What if that was her? I see her bed, because I took her on the cath lab stretcher. I see her bed, which the wheels were locked, move towards the door. The whole bed moves towards the door, and the EKG leads that I had put on the monitor are swinging back and forth, like kind of violently. I'm like, oh my God. I get up from the thing and I'm like, Kendra, somebody talk to me. I don't want to be here. It was like, as her spirit was going up, she was like, I told you. I will never forget that. And I will always listen to a patient's intuition.
So when my mom told me this story, it gave me goosebumps. So my mom is a hospice nurse, and one night a few years ago, she was on call, and she gets a call from one of the hospitals in town that says, hey, we got a patient. They just got the bad news from the doctor, and they want to be on hospice. My mom did her job. Okay, let them know I'll be there shortly. Probably take me about 10 minutes. So at the hospital was this woman. We'll call her Jane. She had just gotten told by the doctor, the bad news that she had terminal cancer, and she didn't have a whole lot longer to live. So while her family was there, they elected to go on hospice for the remaining time that she had left. So after they had made the decision as a family, her kids, everybody, they left. So Jane was kind of sitting there taking it all in while she was waiting for the hospice nurse. In this moment, a woman walks in her room, and Jane's kind of looking up like, who the hell are you? And this woman introduces herself and says, hi, my name's Betty. I'm your neighbor. I've been your neighbor for the last couple days here in the hospital. I'm just in the room down the hall. And I heard the bad news. So I just wanted to come in and say, is there anything I can do for you to let you know that it's going to be okay? And Jane was like, what do you mean you heard how did you hear the bad news? And she was kind of taken aback by this. And she's talking to me, and she goes, no, I'm okay. I think I just need some time. The hospice nurse is coming. I'm going to just take some time to myself. So this woman comes to her and goes, okay, okay, sweetie, we're in the Midwest. Okay, sweetie, if you need anything, let me know. And so instead of turning around and leaving the room, Betty turns and walks into the bathroom of Jane's room and shuts the door. And Jane was just kind of shocked, like, what is happening here? And literally, probably 60 seconds after that happened, my mom got there. She came and she knocked on the door. Hi, I'm the hospice nurse. Do you have a minute to talk? And Jane was kind of like, yeah, I guess. So my mom, she's been a nurse for a really long time. And so she sees like this hesitation on Jane's face, and she can hear it in her voice. And she's like, is there something on your mind? Do you want to say something? And Jane was kind of like, so my neighbor, Betty, just came in and, was really sweet, really a nice lady, but she just went into the bathroom and she's still in there. My mom was like, oh, okay. How long has she been in there? And Jane was like a minute or so, but I can't, I don't hear anything. I don't hear, what's going on. So my mom is trying to be very polite. Obviously, this is a situation where Betty doesn't need to be there. And, my mom's been in healthcare for a long time. She thought maybe Betty might have a little dementia or something. So she walks over to the bathroom door and she knocks, and there's no answer. And she knocks again and she says, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm with hospice. I'm going to open the door. So then she goes to open the door and there's nobody in there. So then, my mom says to Jane, gosh, there's nobody in here. And Jane's like, kind of wigged out. Obviously, she's like, I had a conversation with her. Like, I'm not sleeping. I'm not groggy. She was in there. And so, my mom was like, okay, well, let's, he just had a traumatic, thing happen. It's a lot going on. Let's kind of get going. We'll talk through this, and maybe I'll go check on Betty, and maybe she slipped out at some point when you didn't see her. So they finished the paperwork, because of course it's healthcare, there's paperwork for everything. So they finished the paperwork. My mom says, they finished chatting, and my mom says, okay, well, I'll go check on Betty and we'll be with them. And Jane's like, okay, thank you for coming. So my mom leaves and walks over to the room that Betty said she was from, and she looks in and there's nobody in there. So then she walks down to the nurse's station to report off, I guess, what she had done and kind of keep in communication with the nurses. And as she's reporting to the nurses, she tells them, hey, Jane said Betty kind of came in her room right before I got there, and I can't find her in her room now, so I just want to make sure that, if she has dementia or something, she's not lost somewhere, so if somebody could just make sure she's okay. And I'll never forget my mom's face when she told me this part. She said the nurse looks at her and goes, "What?" So my mom goes, "Betty, I just want to make sure she's okay. She was in," and recants the story, and the nurse looks at her and goes, "Betty died this morning. Like 12 hours ago. Betty's not there. Betty was not in her room." And of course, my mom was shooketh by this. My mom is not a storyteller. She's not she's a spiritual person, but she's not big into the paranormal. So this really took her back. She was pretty freaked out by this, but yeah, when she told me the story, like I said, I know her. She doesn't make up stories. She doesn't make this stuff up. So when she was telling me this, like, I got goosebumps. I'm like, that is creepy.
Okay, I worked at a haunted hospital, okay, owned a postpartum unit as a CNA, and that hospital is haunted, okay, and ain't nobody gonna tell me different. The postpartum unit is definitely haunted, okay. I have so many stories, but this is one that happened. So I was working night shift. We would only have one CNA on usually, okay, so it's just me and the nurses. This hospital is super old hospital. It's the only hospital in the community other than the hospitals on the military base, but for everyday civilians, it's the only hospital, so it's pretty old. It's been renovated. Anyway, the postpartum unit, the nurse's station is here in the middle. One side is postpartum, one side is pediatrics. We don't, by that time, oh, sorry, my chest started hurting. Anyway, so like I said, so the pediatric side and the postpartum side. At that time that this incident happened, we had no patients on the pediatric side, none at all. So we had cribs down there, we had all kinds of storage stuff down there, and we did have a supply closet down there. Other than that, that's all we had down there because it was completely empty. We had low census. We only had patients on postpartum. So, the night's going good. I'm working with my besties. We ordered our DoorDash. We're having us a good night. It's a good night, okay? All of a sudden, call bell starts ringing. And I'm like, okay, like, that's weird because I didn't take care of everybody else. Like, something must be going on. Like, why is the call bell going off? Like, what does this mama's need? So I go look at it because the call bell is in a nurse's station. And I answer the phone. I say, "This is Maria. How can I help you?" Nothing. I say, okay, that's weird. So I get out the nurse station and I go look, and I see that there's a light ringing down the pediatric side. Mind you, there's no patients down there. So I'm like, why is that light ringing? There's nobody down there. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I just hang up the phone. I'm like, okay, because sometimes, like, maybe it's a glitch. Okay, it's fine. Like, it's an old hospital, whatever. I knew there was no patients down there. Like, for 100% I knew. So I was like, I'm not even going to walk down there. I'm trying to eat my little food while it's hot, whatever. So then about like 5 minutes later, call bell goes off again. I answered. I say, "Hello, this is Maria. How can I help you?" Nothing. I say, okay, all right. So I get out and I go look, and again, it is the same light down the pediatric side that's in this one particular room that's ringing. I'm like, okay, like, what is somebody down there? Like, is a housekeeper down there? Is somebody down there that actually needs some help? So I walk down the hallway. Mind you, as soon as I start walking down the hallway, I start feeling nauseous, okay? And maybe it's in my head, maybe it's not, but I start feeling nauseous. I start feeling anxious. I'm walking down the hallway looking like this, like, make sure ain't nobody behind me, because I'm the only person walking down this pediatric hallway by myself. I get to the room because I can see on the outside of the door that the light is flashing, and I look in. And when I look inside of the room, not only is there no patient there, there's nothing in the room. And by nothing, I mean there's no bed, there's no bedside table, there's no remote control for the TV, there's no call light. There's no call light, okay? How is the call light ringing not only on the outside, it's ringing on the outside of the door and at the nurse's station? There's no call light in there. By that, I mean, if you work in a hospital, those call lights attached to the wall. It's like a long, cord attaches to the wall that has like a remote, whatever. That wasn't in the room. Now, this was pretty common that there wasn't stuff in the room because we had low census, so sometimes other units would borrow our stuff, or sometimes we would just not have anything in the room because we would be putting our big cribs, in there, whatever. So I wasn't surprised that there wasn't nothing in the room. However, I was surprised, okay, that not only was the call light going off and there's nobody in the room, but there's no call bell. There's no call bell. Okay? I about ran back to the nurse's station. You know how SpongeBob was like running when he's taking the trash out? Like, that was me. And that is one of many stories I have of when I worked at a haunted hospital. Okay.
I just realised I haven't told you about my ghost story. This ghost story is 100% true, so buckle in because this is a good one. So my ghost story begins when I was a student nurse. I was working 3 shifts in a row. I do the first shift, and that night I woke up at 3 a.m. and I thought, why am I awake at 3 a.m? It was a bit weird, but I just went to sleep, didn't think anything of it, and then went to work the next day. Did my little shift, and then I came home. And then that night, I also woke up at 3 a.m. Again, like on the dot, 3 a.m. It's about to get weird. So I wake up, I click my phone, it's bright in my face, I'm seeing 3 a.m. But this time, when I look up, there is a girl standing at the end of my bed. It must have been summertime because my room was bright enough for me to see every detail. Do you want to shut up with that drill? Because I'm telling a good story. The colour of her nail varnish, the colour of her hair, the style of her hair, exactly what her face looked like, her frame, the colour of her clothes, everything. Clear as day. And I wasn't scared in the slightest because I was in this weird, like, relaxed trance. It's almost like my body knew that she wasn't a threat and she was there for, like, good reasons, whatever that reason might be. Just to paint more of a picture, she had, like, wavy black hair that came down to about here, quite a narrow face, red lipstick, red nail varnish on. She was wearing quite plain clothes, but she was, like, a small frame, quite slim. She looked like the same age as me. And I thought, what are you doing in here then? I didn't recognise her, obviously. And at the time, I remember looking at my phone, looking at her, looking at my phone, looking at her. And I was thinking, is she actually there? Because this is weird, or am I just really tired? And I solidly looked at her. I felt like I was staring at her for like ages. And then she put her hand up like this and just waved a little bit like that and just faded into nothing. And because I was half in some sort of weird dream state, I just went back to sleep. So I went back to sleep and I got up, crack of dawn, ready for work again. I did remember that this had happened the night before, but I just thought it was a glitch. I don't know what I thought. So I'm at work on a care of the elderly ward, and then this guy comes onto the ward and he was like, Crystal, do you want a tour of the mortuary? And I was like, yes! I've been asking him for so long to show me around the mortuary, and finally the day had arrived, and I just said to him, I'm really looking forward to it. I really want to go there and see how everything works and the whole process and blah, blah, blah. I just don't want to see any children. I don't want to see their names. I don't want to see their ages. I just don't think that I could deal with babies and children. And he was like, yeah, that's all right, come on. So there was a group of about 5 student nurses in the mortuary at this time, and he was walking us around to the different fridges, showing us the different paperwork that they have to do, and explaining to us student nurses why it's so important for us to do what we do on the ward when someone passes away, because of then what happens in the mortuary, if that makes sense. Okay, so imagine this. You're standing in the corner. It's this big rectangle room with 4 porcelain tables in the middle of the room. And then around the edges of the room is like a table and all these scary tools that they'd use for like autopsies and bits and pieces like that. He's finishing up the tour and he's saying, thanks everyone for coming. I hope you've all learnt something, blah, 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 blah. And then there's this doorbell sound. And he was like, oh, hang on a minute, guys, I just got to go get the door. So he goes and he opens the door. And this entrance is where the bodies are brought in from the community. So if somebody passed away at home, blah, 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 blah. 2 police officers walk in with a stretcher with a body bag on it, exactly the same as in the movies. They wheel this body bag over to one of the empty porcelain tables. And one of the police officers has a notebook and he reads out, this young girl is a Jane Doe, found in the forest early hours of this morning, suspected overdose. We suspect that she's homeless and doesn't have a next of kin. Then the zip starts to open and the first thing I notice is red nail varnish on these little hands that look just like mine. He unzipped that bag and my face went white. I could not believe my eyes. That's the girl that was in my room the night before. Except when she was in my room, her makeup was nice, her hair was nice, it was nice and glossy black wavy hair, her nail varnish was all done perfectly. And when I'm seeing her now in the mortuary, she had leaves in her hair and dirt and mud, and her nail varnish was chipped. Like, it was still red, but it was chipped. And she didn't look as pretty as she did when I saw her before. Now, the rules of the mortuary are that you're not allowed to know anybody, you're not allowed to recognise anybody in the mortuary. It's against the rules. And one of the other student nurses said to me, she was like, shit, Crystal, do you know her? Because of my face. And I went, no. I thought, I can't bloody say. She was a ghost in my room the night before. They'll think I was crackers. It was just unbelievable. I thought, oh my gosh, like, I literally recognised her as if she was a friend. As much as it was so unbelievably sad that this girl was that young, my theory is because she was homeless and she didn't have a next of kin, she just wanted someone to recognise her, and she wanted someone to look at her and be like, she didn't always look like that, and she wouldn't be remembered like that. She would be remembered for being really pretty and having nice long glossy black wavy hair and having her nails done nice and looking really naturally beautiful and not muddy from a ditch. And that is 100% my theory, and I can't see any other explanation for why she would have been in my room. She's remembered by me, and that's all that matters.